He asked me this question about a Ferrari, and it really made me sit back and think about this answer. Driven Mofos, welcome back to another episode of Winning Standards. I want to share a bit of an experience because today I try to structure these podcasts in a way where there's some form of structure. So today is Wednesday. I really want to talk about winning in life and how you can do that more effectively. Because I know there are a lot of business owners who are listening to this, but too many people can get consumed by business, which actually destroys their life. I think that it's dumb to build a business and destroy a life, but I also think it's dumb to build a life and destroy a business. So both of them have to work together. What I want to talk about today was I was asked by one of my business partners who is a rich lister in Australia. So he's one of my business partners in Sustainable Concrete Group. And we were just having a bit of a chat. And he asked me this question about a Ferrari. He said, Mojo, when's the right time to buy a Ferrari? Well, I sat back and thought about this because I thought, when was the right time that I bought my Audi R8? But when was the right time that I bought my McLaren? Now, these are interesting perspectives. So I'm not saying that you should buy a supercar. I'm not saying that you should do anything. These episodes are there because my background is human behavior. I think I'm probably one of the top experts globally on how to help people to perform at their best. But that doesn't mean that you should live my life or live anybody else's life. My goal is to help people live their own life. And I don't think that most people should build businesses because most people aren't committed to building a business and most people won't enjoy building a business. Which brings me back to the answer about the Ferrari. So when I sat back, I thought about this question, and it's a similar question to when people say, when's the right time to have kids? If you've got kids, there probably is not a right time to have kids, because if you look at it financially, kids essentially are a sinkhole financially. You don't make money on them, right? You don't get an ROI on them financially, but you get an ROI, which is a return on investment. Now, everything in life is an investment or a liability. And the way that I define an investment is that it expands and creates greater value in the future. So when I invest in a business, I think, okay, I'm going to put some money in and I'm going to put some time in depending on what my involvement is in it. So there are a lot of businesses that I invest in that are in my investment portfolio. As an example, I've got a lot of Australian shares. In that share portfolio, I just put money in. I don't really put any time in and I just let it sit there and I reinvest the dividends and so on. That is a long-term play. That's it. But then there are other businesses that I get a bit more involved in. So I take more equity because I'm putting more time in. So they get both my time and my money. So I'll pitch in a chunk of change. But then what I also do is I'll put in my time and I might work with the leadership team. I might work with the founder or something along those lines. And now I might get paid out when there is a sale of the company. It might be when the company IPOs or launches on the share market or the stock market. But when I look at that, I go, if I'm going to put in 10 hours, how do I get 100 hours back? That there is an investment. If I look and I go, I put in 10 hours and I lose 10 hours, that's a liability. This is why I don't really watch a lot of sport. I don't mind watching replays or highlights or things like that, but I've got to understand, is it an investment or a liability? Sometimes if I watch sport and I am more inspired afterwards, that's an investment because I put in some time and I got more inspiration. A lot of people put in time into sport, but it makes them more stressed, more frustrated, more angry, and more pissed off, especially when their team loses because they're emotionally attached to an outcome they can't control. That then becomes a liability, right? If you're one of those people who wake up on Monday morning, you're frustrated and pissed off all week because your team lost on the weekend, you have zero control of that outcome of the game. You're essentially giving your emotional state to somebody else to manage. And then you're pissed off and frustrated because now you're emotional all week on something you can't control. To me, that's an absolute liability. So I have nothing wrong with watching sport. If you watch sport, great. But when people get emotionally attached to sport, it can become a liability to them, especially if they're investing a lot of time into that sport. If you get paid for it, one of the guys I went to school with, he is a sports announcer. So he gets paid to watch sport. I think that's awesome. But most people don't. So I run everything that I do through a lens of investment and liability. Does it expand the value that I have in life or does it decrease the value that I have in life? And then so when I'm investing in businesses or when I'm investing in people, I'm thinking, what's the return on investment? Is this an asset or a liability? So if I put time and energy into a team member, am I going to get back something of greater value into the future? If not, then it's a liability. They got to go. Or I just don't give my time to them. If it is financial, same thing. But I also think about this in how I live. I don't think that most people who do well financially think like this because they only think in investments and liabilities in a money sense. So I meet a lot of people, they'll come to me and they'll reach out and they go, you know what, Michael, I'm so stressed out. I'm so frustrated. Things aren't working. My team aren't working, yada, yada, yada. And they get so frustrated and you can hear the frustration in their voice. And I say, look, you need to grow your leadership. You're an operator and now you need that leadership transition. We also have to build out your success map in life so you know how to enjoy your life and you can have everything you want. You don't have to have a business and do well financially at the age of 35 or 40 and be miserable until you're 60 or 65 in order to then hope that one day, because it's hope, anything in the future is fantasy, in order to hope that everything works out so that then you can relax, so that then you can retire, and so that then you can enjoy life. That's stupid. That is dumb. And that's how most people live. They're like, I'm going to work really, really hard doing a job that I hate, and I'll justify it through the money so that one day I can enjoy life. But then normally what happens as well is they take that money and they buy liabilities because it gives them momentary pleasure because their life is so shit that they need something to justify it. Like, oh, I bought a new jet ski. Great, brother. You ride it twice a year, right? You might ride it 20 times in the first 2 months or 3 months when you're excited, but now it's a pain in the ass. You get out the shed next year, the battery needs recharging. It's frustrating. You're going to sell it in 2 years or 3 years and you're going to cop a massive loss. To me, that's a liability. Right? It's not really thinking. So I see my life as being an asset. I see everything I do as being an asset. So my health is an asset. My relationships are an asset. My time is an asset. My money and my wealth is an asset. The people that I hang around are an asset. I try to eliminate liabilities as much as I can. Now that doesn't mean that doesn't happen, and it doesn't mean that I don't do stupid shit as well, right? There are some times where I eat shitty food. It's probably a liability when I wake up in the morning and feel like crap. But if I'm going out with Jess, my wife, and a whole bunch of friends, and we're all enjoying food and everything like that, I look at it through the lens of, okay, this might impact my health as a liability, but it is increasing the asset of my relationships, my friendships, and the experience. We'll talk about this for the next 10 years. So I'm happy to do that. The same as I'm happy to take money and go on a holiday with Jess. The money side of it might be a liability, but the asset is in the relationship. Okay, I don't think you can have a gain without a loss. So I might lose a little bit financially, but I gain a lot in the relationship. Now, if the relationship expands, Jess works with me to make even more money. So then that becomes a asset, right? Because if Jess and myself are clashing in our relationship, the chances of me working really, really hard that week when I'm thinking about our relationship it's going to take its toll. So coming back to the Ferrari and my business partner, he asked me, when's the right time to buy a Ferrari? And I explained the asset and liability model. And I said, there's never a right time. It's just, is this an asset or a liability? If you buy a Ferrari, it's a liability, right? Unless you're buying a top of the range special edition where you buy it today and it's $1.5 million or $5 million. Like I've got a friend of mine who he bought a brand new McLaren W1. That one is a special limited car. I think there's only a couple of hundred of them globally that are allocated. He's got one, or he's got one coming. It's getting built. Now that car I think is like $4 million. Because there's a limited supply, people who have a lot of money, they want limited things. So that car, by the time he gets it, will probably be worth another $500,000 to $1 million more than what it is, because all the people who wanted one can't get one. And so they'll pay more for it. Now, if we remove those types of cars and we just go to normal supercars, most of them depreciate financially for a period of time until they hit bottom, and then they start to go back up again after many, many years. So I said, if you look at that, it's a liability financially. So if you look at it through a financial lens, it is a liability. Are you okay with that liability? Now, he's got plenty of money, but he's also growing his portfolio. He's a young guy. He's a young rich lister. And so I said, you've got to be okay with taking that financial hit. But then look at it from an asset perspective. Where is the asset? So when you drive it around, do you feel like it enhances the quality of your life? If the answer is yes, then now it is an asset. There's a life enhancement. Then the next thing is, how long do you think it'll be a life enhancement for? Because some people, I assume that most people who are listening to this podcast will go out, they will buy a brand new car and they go, yeah, of course it's an asset. My life feels better, but only better for 2 to 3 weeks. Then the kids spill their fries in the back of the car because you went through Macca's drive-through. You've got 2 kids under the age of 4. There's shit everywhere. There's crumbs in the back. You use it for work. It gets banged up a bit. And so eventually it just becomes another car, which is probably a liability. I might be overthinking this, right? You can tell I spend a lot of time thinking about these things, but that's what makes me, I guess, a global expert in human behavior, because I think through these things about how we make decisions, what winning looks like, what high standards look like, how we make good decisions, because the only difference between the life that you want and the life that you have is the decisions that you're prepared to make, right? That's really important. The only difference between the life you have and the life that you want or dream of is the decisions that you're willing to make. Every week I hop on the phone and I hear business owners and they say, I want to grow my business, but they tell me about all these problems. They know they're the bottleneck. There's all this shit. And the moment they have to make a decision which stretches them, they tuck their things in between their legs up inside of themselves and they start playing scared again because it's unfamiliar. It's uncomfortable to them. They don't know how to make bigger decisions. So they're stuck. So the only difference between the life that you have now and the life that you want is the decisions that you're prepared to make. Now let's come back to the supercar. So if you buy the car and in 2 years' time or a year's time, you still feel like when you drive that car around, it is adding value to your life. You feel better because of it. You enjoy life more. Then it is probably an asset in that area, not financially, but in that area. So if you know that it's a liability financially, that's okay. And you're okay with that, cool. But then where's the asset that matches it? If you go, okay, well, I drive it around, I feel great. For me personally, the reason why I bought my McLaren is I grew up as a car person. I love cars. So getting in there and giving it a quick little squirt of gas, oh, it gets me excited. I'm smiling right now. If you're listening to this on audio, I'm smiling. I have the biggest grin because when I put my foot down, you've got a twin turbo V8 in a light car and it pulls you into the back of the seat. Oh, I love that feeling. So it excites me. I go for cruises on weekends where when I just need to think, I hop in the car, I put on some music, I'm cranking the trance or hip hop or whatever, and I just go for a drive. It helps me to think. So I see value there. I see value there in the excitement, in the enthusiasm. I see it in the clarity that I get in my own mind when I'm out there driving it. There are some times where I'll just be overwhelmed. Like I've just got a lot of stuff going on and Jess will say to me, I think you need to go for a drive. And she's correct. Get in the car because it clears my head. So I go and take it for a drive. Then I go and park it somewhere and I might go get a coffee and I come out and there's 5 kids standing around the car all taking photos. Well, the inspiration to me as well is my whole life is based. Every single thing that I do, my whole life purpose is about amplifying greatness. That's why I'm put on this earth, is to amplify greatness. That's also the reason why I don't like working with tire kickers. Because if you can't see greatness, I can't amplify it. If you see part of your greatness, I can bring it out of you. But if you don't see it and you don't want to see it, that's cool. Go hang out with other losers. But if you really want to enhance your greatness, I'm the guy. I'll amplify the shit out of that thing. But you've got to be prepared to work for it. So when there's little kids there and they're taking photos, I know that hopefully that is going to inspire their greatness. And it inspires me because I know that I'm on the right track and I was that kid. So again, there's more value to my life. When I park somewhere and someone comes up and they go, brother, what do you do? And I get to talk to them. I get to inspire greatness or amplify greatness in that person. There are plenty of adults who sit in my car and they go, man, do you mind if I sit in it? Yeah, go for it. Sometimes I take people for drives. I'm not saying that you should ask me all the time because there's a lot of times that I can't. I got lots of shit on. Sometimes it's hard as well because I'll park the car somewhere. There's a bunch of little kids and they go, hey, can I sit inside of it? I go, oh, look, I'm running really, really late for an appointment. And I am. And I can't. I have to say no. But, you know, if I had time, I would say yes. My point is, though, that when I look at it, I go, okay, I get clarity from driving my car. I get inspiration. I get enthusiasm. It picks up my energy. I get to inspire other people through that car, and I look at it through that lens. And then I look at it, what are my standards in life? Would I be happy just driving around in any sort of car? Yeah, I guess. Like if I was just going from point A to point B, I just use a car because that's what it's for. But if I just want to go out and, you know, pump some music and go for a drive and go and hang out with mates and things like that, there is nothing better than rocking up in a supercar. So when I look at that, I go, right, does the asset outweigh the liability? And to me, the answer was yes. There are lots of people out there, and I see this online all the time, where someone is insecure as shit. They grew up, they didn't have a lot of money, they got picked on, and now they're trying to ball because, you know, they want to prove their worth to everybody. So they go out and they buy a supercar. Then a year later, they get on social media and they go, oh, I had a supercar. All it does is you just lose money on it. You know, people are just always around it. You can't go anywhere because people are taking photos of you. You know what? It's just a waste of money. You know, because you never thought about it properly. You bought it because you wanted to impress others. You didn't buy it for you. You didn't buy it because it adds value to your life. You bought it because you thought that it would get you something that you don't have within yourself and you're insecure. That's a dumb idea. And a lot of people do that consistently. Like if you like fashion and you're going to go out and you're going to spend, you know, $1,000 on a pair of jeans, go for it. If that is an asset to you, then go for it. But if the liability is the money and you're money strapped all the time and you go out and you spend $1,000 on a pair of jeans, the question is the asset greater than the liability? Because if you're struggling financially, a liability on a liability is not a good idea. That's how you think through these things. You know when the right time to have kids is when having a child becomes an asset to your life, not a liability. There are plenty of people who have kids and they go, fuck, these are liabilities. That's because you didn't think through it properly. If you sit there and you go, well, having kids to me is great. It gives me more growth. I get to become a parent. I can't have that without them. I learn a lot. I feel like it's part of my calling. And you start stacking up all of these assets within your own life, then your life becomes greater. So your standards increase, your greatness increases, life gets better. And I think that if you keep thinking through it, like my life every year gets better and better and better. And my standards keep increasing. Why? Because I think through the lens of asset and liability and where value is. I don't think about it just financially, because there are plenty of people that I've worked with over the years who have massive bank accounts. I mean, I work with a guy who's a large property developer, and it took me probably years to work with him to see value in things that aren't money, because he would literally just make money, pull money, and then go and allocate that money to making more money. And he had shit tons of money. But he didn't really have a great life, because for everything, we'd go out and we'd get a coffee and he'd go, oh, I don't really want a coffee. And I'd go, why not? Oh, you know, I just can't justify spending $5 on a coffee. And I'm like, bro, this is crazy, right? You're not the poor guy anymore. Your identity is stuck in the poor person. That's not you anymore, right? And then I started having to teach him how to relax and see things as being an asset, like sitting there with a friend and having a coffee that's $5 or $8 or whatever it is now. Is that an asset to you? Because if you want to sit there and be a douche and not have a coffee so that you save $5 so that then you can go and reinvest that capital to make an extra, 5% or 10% or 20% or whatever, like that's understandable when you're broke, and that's understandable when you're growing. But when you're rich as shit now, that it's taking away from your life. That thinking becomes a liability to your relationships, to your friendships, to your growth. Driven mofos, hope you enjoyed the episode. Please remember to rate and review this podcast, and sharing is caring. So share this. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to share it with people. Let's get this out there. Let's keep building this community of driven mofos. I know if you're listening to this podcast, you are hungry, you are driven, you are ambitious, and you're trying to figure this stuff out because you want a better life. So share it with more people. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you on the next episode. Most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them.